Our weekly conversation continues. We call it Moral Side of the News. We're glad you're alongside today. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. And joining me, as always, is our distinguished panel. Rabbi Emeritus Stan Miles, Temple Shalom. Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, Senior Pastor, St. Peter's United Church of Christ, President and CEO of MOLO Village CDC. Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and Father Bill Hammer from St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church. The pandemic continues to dominate headlines, especially now that the variant COVID viruses are spreading in the U.S., including here in Kentucky. As we all hold out for hope for widespread vaccinations, a White House COVID-19 advisor this week said it will be months before all Americans who want a coronavirus vaccine can get it. Tough for all of us to hear, especially people like Louisville's Joan Martin, who at nearly 90 years old has had an impossible time getting signed up for a vaccination. So our panel now on Moral Side of the News, what do you tell your congregations to keep them hopeful and willing to keep masking up as we approach a year of this?
I don't have a congregation currently, but what I tell folks who are in my cohort, and my wife and I just had the first dose last Friday, and we'll get the rest on the 12th of February. I give them the ways that we've accessed to try to get the shots. Now, my wife tried to sign up for both of us, and my shot went through, hers didn't. So I was scheduled to go to one venue, and she ultimately was able to get to another venue at the last moment to get her inoculation. What I do is I just give them the names of the websites that they can access to get on a waiting list. The tragedy, I feel, is that until the new administration came in, there was absolutely no national plan. And the idea, states were competing against one another to save lives. In the United States of America, I find this to be an obscenity.
I totally agree with that. It's just been frustrating for us to be able to support our parishioners and students on campus, all of the people that we know, to give information that's not consistent throughout time. So it's just been frustrating. It's frustrating. And I agree. It is not only obscene, it's immoral the way that the previous administration has treated the entire pandemic, much less the strategy or lack thereof of the vaccines. I have been sharing with those that are under my responsibility to just, do the best you can to sign up for the vaccination, but we can't let up on the things that we know works. We have to mask up, continue to wash hands, continue to sanitize, even after you have both shots. If you're doing the Pfizer or the Moderna, even after both of the shots, we still have to protect ourselves and to practice those things that we know that will mitigate the spread of the virus. And I think they've said even 3 weeks after you've had your second shot to give your body time to increase on its immunity. Even after that, we still have to do the same thing until this pandemic finally abates.
Certainly, I think part of the situation we find ourselves in now has been the oversell about what was going to be happening for us. I'm grateful for whatever was labeled Operation Warp Speed. It did facilitate the creation of the vaccines in a sped up process. I'm very grateful for that. But we were also told that because of that brilliant plan, there's going to be ample supplies for everybody. And the fact is that was an oversell and was inaccurate. And so that set up, I think, false expectations for so many people. And it is heartbreaking and crushing right now. I am hopeful, the present administration now, that there'll be more released in a more timely way, but they can only release what they have access to. And that's what the situation we're in right now. I think one of the things that's really important as leaders of congregations or just as people who have neighbors, one of the things in our congregation, because we have been live streaming since whatever, April, May, and there are members of our congregation who simply either don't have, or at least at that time, didn't have computers, didn't have access to the live streaming. So we've asked her to kind of adopt them or make sure the grandkids did it. And so my congregations, I've been trying to encourage them to check on people. If you can ask somebody, have they been able to register yet? No, because I can't figure it out. Well, then you can do it again for them. And to find a way to help facilitate that, especially for those, again, who may have relatives, out of town. I mean, they may be here by themselves. And that is a responsibility, it's a moral responsibility we all have to be attentive to our neighbors.
I participated in the mass vaccination clinic out at Broadbent Arena. And part of doing that was so that I could get enough hours. If you got 40 hours, then you would qualify for the vaccination. And part of the issue that I saw there was there were not a lot of people of color coming to the vaccination shot, to the site. And so I contacted the Metro Health Department and said, what are we doing in order to make this vaccination more available to people of color? And of course, what they did was set up a site at the YMCA on Broadway, which is excellent. But the issue is getting the people to that site. And one of the things that we did at St. Peter's was to volunteer our site as a location for the shot. Because with us having the food pantry, we have 100 or so people every Friday that come in. And I said, we've got to become more creative in making sure that those shots are available to the community. If you can set up a site here and people pick up food and get the shot at the same time, then that's a win-win for the individual. And so I think part of this is to stay, I know there is a lack of vaccinations available. I understand that, but there are those that are available in the West End in different locations, but they're not being utilized because people can't get there. And so I believe that in this process of increasing availability, we've got to be more creative in making sure that what is available is being administered to the people that need it.
So I have a question for you all. How many of you have had it? Stan, you said, Jamesetta, you've had it?
Yes, I've had the first dose.
Bill, you have not had it. You've had it too.
No, I'm raising my hand now. No, I'm considered, because we have a very large elementary school. So I was included as a member of a school faculty. So I actually had mine 2 days ago, and it was at Broadbent Arena. It went extremely smoothly. My experience extremely smoothly there.
They have an excellent setup.
Oh yeah, it was so efficient, and I can't remember the last time I was in a room with so many happy people.
So are you sensing any hesitation from anyone? I won't get this. I don't want this. Or do you think everybody's kind of, if I can get it, I'm going for it?
What I have noticed is in many of the spaces of African-American life, there has been hesitation until someone that they respect goes forward and get the shot and then encourages them to reconsider it. And that is what happened in my case and my wife's case when we went to do our shot as essential workers, as therapists for our counseling center for the engagement that we do with the public. So showing and advertising through our social media platforms, us doing the shot has encouraged others to reconsider and to get the shot for themselves.
And I did the same thing. When I got my shot, I made sure to have them photograph it, and I posted it because I knew that it would help to others to make that decision. If I received it, then perhaps that's okay, and I might go ahead and take it as well.
I'm not sure of the other sites, but at Broadband Arena, they even give you a little sticker, like when you donate blood. I gave blood today.
Right.
Well, I got a little green sticker, and I certainly wore mine for several days. In our particular setting here, I do know we did not have 100% participation by all the teachers that were eligible, but I've not asked anyone what the reason was. If it was potentially, because we only had a 1 hour window, and maybe they had some family that simply couldn't, I'm not sure what the reasoning would have been. I'm not of a mind to try to interview them now, but I do know that there was not 100% participation. So to your question, John, about are the people not receiving the vaccine? Yes, that they have already qualified and could, but there may be medical reasons, there may be other reasons, even though all reports I'm hearing is that there shouldn't be, unless maybe a pregnancy or something like that. But I'll have to leave that to other people to make that own discernment. But I do know a very, very high percentage of our faculty did make it and get it.
So how confident are you all in the Biden administration saying 100 million vaccines in the first 100 days? Do you think we'll accomplish that goal?
Well, I think that we're there now at 100 million. I think he increased it to 1.5 million, and I think we can achieve that provided that the supply is there, and that's the issue. No one knows what is available. And until they figure that out, then, who knows whether we can achieve it or not. But it just shows how inept the previous administration was in dealing with this pandemic. How do you do warp speed and make all of these promises and not be able to follow through on them? But I mean, that's nothing new for that administration. They made all kinds of promises and never followed through on anything except for the negative things.
So when I hear that number of what the number of people that they're wanting to vaccine, I hear it as a goal, not a specific goal, but as something to shoot for. Because what that will mean for me is that it's going to be more than what we have now. I hear it as we're being aggressive and trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible. In my mind, it would not be a negative thing if they didn't reach that number, but it would be an issue if it was way off the number, well overestimated. But I know that, publicly in various different circles, the administration is going to be judged by not hitting that number specific. But for me, it's just being able to get anywhere close to that number would be better for the public.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would have found helpful with that number would have been if the administration had said, we're going to do 100 million because we know we have X million shots from Pfizer. We know we have X million shots from Moderna. We know we have X million shots, and going on down, because there's more vaccines supposed to be coming available in the very near future. I mean, I'm not trying to be a commercial for drug companies, but I've heard, Johnson & Johnson's supposed to be getting close. Well, how many million is Johnson & Johnson going to deliver of that 100 million? Otherwise, it seems to me it is a bit of a pipe dream, and I'm all for dreaming. I don't oppose dreaming and having lofty goals. But as Kilen was mentioning, if you don't come up anywhere close to that, it would have been helpful if they could have said, or would have chosen to say, we're confident because we know this, and this. Or these are coming online the next week and they're going to all of a sudden become available. But anyway.
I also believe that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a one-shot deal.
Mm-hmm. That's what I hear.
It is.
Well, we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned for the vaccination. And thank you, panel, here on Moral Side of the News. We'll start with our second topic now. More sobering news this week as the Department of Homeland Security issued a national terrorism bulletin. It signals the threat of potential violence by domestic extremists. It seems there are some who might be emboldened by the January 6th U.S. Capitol riot. The department did not explicitly say there were any credible threats, but said that it remains concerned and will continue to take precautions to protect Americans and infrastructures across the United States. So now on to our panel on Moral Side of the News. How do we live with this fear of violence?
It's terrifying. We hopefully trust that there will be, once again in the new administration, a drive to integrate agencies like the FBI to go after those domestic terrorists. And also, I think that a lot is going to depend on the people who have been arrested already from the Capitol, from the insurrection at the Capitol. What's going to happen to those people? If it's a simple wrist slap, then to tell you the truth, it's terrifying, because the organizations will feel totally emboldened, and I can certainly understand why.
Part of my initial reaction is as well that actually we have been here before, after 9/11. And all of a sudden we have to be much more heightened in our sensitivity to our surroundings, airports, luggage. And so that's not a change, I think, since September 11th, that particular occasion. So I think for most Americans, it's not a huge change. But I do want to echo one of the things that Stan did mention about consequences. And I do think that is what likely would embolden people, is the fact that, you hear things like, well, it doesn't matter now. I strongly disagree. If somebody in the corporate world steals a lot of money, well, I'm going to resign. So you can't charge me anymore because I'm not that treasurer. Or again, if you are somebody in an aspect of security and you create a crime, well, I'm no longer working for that company, so you can't charge me anymore. It's like, I don't understand the rationale all of a sudden from some people that there should be no consequences for some of the behavior that happened during the insurrection and the attempt to, in effect, a coup. But since it's in the past, we just let it go. Well, we've never been a nation or a people that thought we just let things go just because time's passed. So that would, I think, would be a major way to try to mitigate some of these possibilities if there is genuine consequences that come from that kind of behavior.
But I think that the consequences cannot be limited to the people on the ground. It has to deal with leadership. If you or I or any of us on this call were to do anything like that, there would be consequences for us. We would be in jail. We would lose our job. We would do, who knows what would happen to us. And so those same type of consequences need to be for those in political office, whatever office that may be, as well as those in leadership positions throughout the United States. We cannot just allow this to go away, because that gives permission for anybody to step forward and continue to do this type of behavior. It's morally wrong, but not only that, it goes against our political will. That we are to live in a safe country. We should not have to deal with these type of violent crimes. Of course, if you're a person of color, then you're going to deal with these type of crimes. You're going to deal with this type of violence more than white people. And so to some degree, this is not new for us. It's just a different way. It's just a different arena that it's happening in, which is why I think it's getting more attention than it would have gotten otherwise.
Well, historically in this country, the narrative of violence and who tends to be the victims of violence and who tends to be framed as the perpetrator of violence is based on race. What's the conversation in the African American community is a stark conversation since January the 6th. And part of that conversation is that you're seeing white supremacy in its grandest exemplar on January 6th, with not only how freely these individuals were able to just breach the Capitol, but the subsequent conversation after that of what do we do with these people, and the ways that there are a few that are being charged with serious crimes, but a majority of them are able to go home, are able to be released on their own recognizance. And the African American community is watching that and watching their family members who have gotten tens of years of time for nothing close to an insurrection. And that is creating a significant sense of disgust within the African American community and the Latino community. Because, we know that we know historically, those individuals that were framed as insurrectionists, the Black Panther Party back in the 70s, we see what happened to them with them just trying to defend the safety of people in their community. And now you see these militias and all of the Trump supporters and those that were there who were there, it seems, and it may not be factual in most of the cases or some of the cases, but it seems that these individuals are giving the benefit of the doubt for insurrection, the benefit of the doubt for a complete attempt to attack the Capitol and to overturn the election, which is predominantly the places that were located for the vote to be overturned were predominantly Black votes. So this narrative, this continued national narrative of how far people will go to disenfranchise African Americans and persons of color, that's reverberating in the African American community. So when you ask, what do we do about it? Here's a couple of responses that I've heard from people in the African American community. This is not our problem. I mean, this is exactly how they feel. This is not our fight. This is a fight that's something that is beyond what most African Americans are experiencing. And the other thing is, been there, done that. We do this every day. We have had to watch for and do what we can to protect our safety on a daily basis. The insurrection is a daily experience for us.
So do you think this type of extremism and what Kilen just talked about, is that here to stay?
Let's go back exactly 100 years ago. Exactly 100 years ago, there was a march, I think well over 150,000 hooded Klans people marching down Pennsylvania Avenue from the Capitol to the White House, where incidentally their leadership was welcomed at the time. You think that's then, and it could never happen again. And we saw it happening again on the 6th of January. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wish I had a solution. All I can do is express total incredulity and absolute dismay. I have to believe in people. I have to believe that people of goodwill can come together and really get this country where it needs to be on the issue of race, on the issue of prejudice, and fighting domestic terrorism.
But it begins with recognizing and being able to admit that there is a problem and that there are things that are broken regarding racism and power and powerlessness, and all of those things need to be addressed in healthy conversations for us to be able to move forward. And a lot of people are not willing to have that honest conversation, because it means sharing power. It means giving up something, and many people are not willing to give up their power or their privilege.
One of the things that I have observed, I think, in the fact that social media contributed so much to this.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, it's also allowing a very bright light to shine on it. And, rats and vermin run from the light. And so it is important for us to find ways, as you were suggesting, Jamesetta, that we got to keep the conversation going. That is something that I have noticed in members of my congregation, people who would have been supporters of the previous administration, but they are now very seriously asking a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And again, the thing sometimes the question asks, of the ones who were part of the insiders of, so much is free speech. We've never allowed free speech without consequences. Classic, you can't yell fire in a movie theater. There's not. You don't have free speech to perjure yourself. And there are always consequences to everything, both speech and action. And that's what I think, as long as we keep the bright light shining on it, it makes it a whole lot harder to hide. And everybody wants to go back into the darkness. And I'm not going back there.
Well, from the inception of this country, this behavior has been a part of American life. And until we're willing to tell the truth about where we have been and actually what is happening today, it'll always be with us. But thank God there are people of good moral fiber and goodwill that will push the envelope on truth to make sure that we tell the truth about all of this, so that there's a better chance of us being different. But this is the heritage of our country. It is the nature of what this country has been since its inception.
But now that this conversation has begun, I hope it's something that we continue to have dialogue about, because with us being faith leaders, we have an opportunity to take that conversation back to our own faith communities and continue it.
Thank you, Jamesetta Ferguson. A great way to end our program, Moral Side of the News, a discussion about that very topic. Thank you also to Rabbi Stan Miles, Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, and Father Bill Hammer. New this year, if you'd like to catch this episode again, you can go to our Facebook page and just search for Moral Side on Facebook. Until next time, thank you, panel. Be safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time.